Verse 11. Thus the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face, just as a man speaks to a friend. And when Moses returned to the camp, his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, would not depart from the tent. And then in verse 12 it says, Then Moses said to the Lord, See, you say to me, bring up this people, but you yourself have not let me know whom you will send with me. Moreover, you have said, I have known you by name, and you have also found favor in my sight. Now, therefore, I pray you. Everybody say, I pray you. If I have found favor in your sight, let me know your ways, that I may know you, so that I might find favor in your sight. Consider, too, that this nation is your people. In verse 14, and he said, My presence shall go with you, and I will give you. Sorry, y'all. Then he said to him, If your presence does not go, verse 14, he said, And my presence shall go with you, and I will give you rest. Then he said to him, If your presence does not go with us, do not lead us up from here. For how then can it be known that I have found favor in your sight, I and your people? Is it not by your going with us, so that we, I and your people, may be distinguished from all the other people who are on the face of the earth? And the Lord said to Moses, I will also do this thing of which you have spoken, for you have found favor in my sight. Everybody say favor. And I have known you by name. And then Moses said, watch this, I pray you, show me your glory. Everybody say, show me your glory. And he said, I myself will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you, and I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will show compassion on whom I will show compassion. But he said in verse 20, you cannot see my face, for no man can see me and live. And then the Lord said, behold, there is a place by me, and you shall stand there on the rock. In the King James Version, it says the cleft of the rock. And it will come about while my glory is passing by, that I will put you in that cleft, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. In verse 23, he says, then I will take my hand away, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen. You may be seated. I want to talk to you briefly this morning from the subject, the Christmas list, the Christmas list. One of the first Christmas songs I learned as a kid was a song called All I Want for Christmas. And I believe it was a young lady who sang this song. She said, all I want for Christmas, maybe it was a young man, I can't remember, but I believe the song says, all I want for Christmas is my two front teeth. My two front teeth. And later on, I guess that person wanted to eat apples and eat things that you needed your two front teeth for, whatever was going on with their dental situation, they really desired those two front teeth. Later on, people would come out with different variations of this same song, expressing what it is that they wanted for Christmas. Mariah Carey, a few years back, came out with an award-winning song, and she said, all I want for Christmas is you. She said, I don't need the candy canes, I don't need the gingerbread houses, I don't need I don't need all the lights on the house. I don't need all of the commercialism. All I want for Christmas is you. When I was a child, when I would make a Christmas list for my parents, what I would put on that list was the thing that I desired most in my life. Sometimes I would get a present for my birthday, which was okay. Sometimes at other points in the year, if I did good in school, I would get presents for other things. But Christmas was the big ask. If there was something that I really, really wanted, really needed, or felt I needed, I would put that on the top of my Christmas list, because our Christmas list is often indicative of what the most important thing for us is in that particular season of life. For my daughter, one of my daughters, it's an LOL dollhouse. That is, she's been talking about that thing all year to everybody who asks her what she wants for Christmas. She wants you to know beyond the shadow of a doubt what she needs in her life is an LOL dollhouse. And so I don't know if she's going to get it, but I know that that's what she needs. Lately, I've been asking people, adults, what do you want for Christmas? And most of them are taken by surprise that I'm asking them this question. And it's not that I'm asking them because I want to give them a Christmas present. I just want to know what it is that they desire most in a particular season. And most adults tell me, hey, I want rest. I want my kids to start acting right. I want a new vehicle because my vehicle's climbing. I want a new job. People give me all kinds of things. And what they're saying is the thing that I desire most typically is what is going to end up at the top of the Christmas list. Today when we arrive in the text in Exodus chapter 33, we are going to see if Moses had a Christmas list, what I believe would be on that particular list. Before we get into this particular of the story, I want to talk about this journey that Moses has been on. We've been talking and walking with Moses for about 8 weeks now. And when you see Moses in Exodus chapter 33, you really have to squint to really recognize this man by the name of Moses. See, it's almost as if you're going to a class reunion and you haven't been back home in 25 years, and you go there and you go to the class reunion and people don't look the same as they did when you were 18, that now at 43 that you're seeing in front of you. So you're squinting and saying, is that so-and-so? Is that Derek? Is that Susan? Because it kind of looks like them, but that's not the person I remember from yesteryear. And Moses has undergone a spiritual transformation as he's journeyed with God that makes him almost unrecognizable than what he was just 1 year prior. How do you know? How do I see this? Where do I come to this conclusion? Well, if you look back to Exodus chapter 3, you'll see that Moses was in a very comfortable place in his life. He was 80 years old. He was a fugitive that had evaded the law. He ran out to a desert place called Midian. Everybody say Midian. In Midian, he found his boo. He got married. He had a family, and he was just chilling in Midian. He had a job. He had a family. The laws weren't looking for him. He is living, by all intents and purposes, a very comfortable life. And God, like God often does, God came in and shook up his comfort zone. Came to him and said, look, through a burning bush, God begins to talk to Moses with an audible voice. And he says, look, Moses, I need you, though your life is pretty comfortable where you are, I need you to leave your comfort zone. I need you to step up. I need you to go back to Egypt, the place where they're trying to kill you. I need you to go back to this place because I want you to deliver your people from the hand of Pharaoh, from the nation of Egypt. They are in slavery, and I want you to go toe-to-toe with one of the most powerful men in all of the world. Yes, Moses, come out of that comfortable place and step into your destiny. And at that time, Moses shows very little confidence in God. Though he's hearing the audible voice of God coming from a burning bush, that should have told him right off the bat, we're talking about something real serious here. He still is not confident in God. God says, look, I'm going to show you miracles. I'm going to do miracles through your hands. These miracles are going to happen, and then you'll know that I'm with you. And Moses says, okay, that's cool, but I'm still not too confident. And you God says, look, Moses, I will give you a spokesperson to speak on your behalf. I will give you people to go with you. I will tell you exactly what it is that you have to say. And if you go back to Exodus chapter 3, you'll hear Moses saying, God, I hear all of this stuff that you're saying, but I am not the man for the job. I lack some confidence. And you, God, you got the wrong guy, but what a difference a year makes. In a stunning transformation, in about a calendar year's time, in about a 12-month period of time, Moses is beginning to display a level of spiritual maturity that should make all of us want to cry out to God and say, God, what must I do to experience a transformation like this in only 12 short months? We see that Moses has this intimate relationship with God. In Exodus chapter 33, verse 11, we see that Moses, in one of my favorite scriptures in the scriptures, he says Moses would go out into this place, this tent of meeting, and he would meet with God, and he would spend time with God, and he would talk to God face to face, kind of as a man would talk to a friend, like you would with your friend over a cup of Starbucks coffee. This is the way that Moses would talk with God. He had developed this intimate relationship with God, and kind of out of that, and a byproduct of that was that he had now won the favor of God. Everybody say favor of God. So this cowardly man in Exodus, I said episode 3, in Exodus chapter 3, has been replaced by this man with this incredible confidence in God. It seems as if Moses has had a refining experience on his palate, his spiritual palate. Let me see if I can make this plain. When we were younger, when we used to like McDonald's, I used to love a McDonald's chicken nugget. Anybody like McDonald's chicken nuggets when you were growing up? Okay, right. And then when you got older, now I can't, even if I gave you free chicken nuggets, you might not accept them because your palate has been refined to the place where you want white breast meat in your chicken nugget. You don't want dark meat. You don't want mystery meat. You don't want fat and sinew in there. You want white meat chicken breast. That's the only thing you eat. Some of us, I grew up eating steak at Ponderosa because I was a cook at Ponderosa back in the day. I ate T-bone steak from Ponderosa. When my wife introduced me to filet mignon, then all of a sudden a T-bone steak from Ponderosa will not do. I need a steak from what's that place called? Not Perry's, Texas, not Texas Roadhouse, Taste of Texas. Thank you, Bill. See, some of y'all don't know about that Taste of Texas. Your palate hasn't been refined yet. So you got to hang out with people like Bill because his palate has been refined. Texas Roadhouse. No. Texas Roadhouse. No. How dare you? How dare you? Some of us grew up eating popcorn shrimp, and now you need shrimp scampi from Papado. You can't just do the popcorn shrimp from Red Lobster. Your palate has been refined, and something similar has happened in the spiritual palate of Moses, where the things that used to satisfy him no longer satisfy him. And so when we see Moses in this new place in his journey where he's kind of turned this corner where he genuinely wants God more than anything else in his life. My prayer for us is that we would turn these corners in our lives where we can genuinely say with a heart of passion and saying it with a straight face that we want more of God more than we want anything else. At the top of the list for Moses, more than he wants success, he wants something better, and that something better is more of God. If you and I are going to experience the kind of transformation that Moses experienced, which we should all be desiring for, it's not going to be from promotion, or it's not going to be from recognition or status of men. It is going to be because we know God more intimately. And if you want to do that, there's a few things that we're going to learn from Moses that you must do. The first desire of your heart and my heart must be that we want to know the ways of God. We must desire to know the ways of God. In verse 12, he says, moreover, Moses says, you have said, this is God talking, I have known you by name, and you have also found favor in my sight. So then Moses says, now therefore I pray you. This is his prayer request. This is a prayer request. I pray you, or I ask you, God, if I have found favor in your sight, would you give me a new house in the gated community? Is that what it says? Would you give me an A on my chemistry final? Is that what it says? If I found favor in your sight, help me to find a good match on Match.com. That's not what it says? It says, if I have found favor in your sight, show me another miracle. No. If I have found favor in your sight, he says, let me know your ways that I might know you. Do you see what's at the top of his Christmas list? It's not anything other than knowing God in a deeper way. This is his prayer request. First thing you pray. Now, let's go a little deeper. So that for your ways I might know you, so that I might find favor in your sight. Watch this. Moses was not content with the current depth of his relationship with God. Moses was not content with the depth of his relationship with God. My brothers and my sisters, so the reason why some of us don't experience growth spiritually is because we're content with where we are. We're content. We're like, well, things are going fine. I can pay my bills. I got a decent job. I'm comfortable. We're kind of like Moses was when he was in Midian. Everything's going pretty okay. I'm healthy. My family's healthy. I come to church on a regular basis. I read my Bible occasionally. I might step into Bible study every now and again. But for all intents and purposes, everything is going pretty good in my life. I'm pretty content with where I am. And if that is you for too long, you will never experience what Moses experienced, this deep, intimate, rich, vibrant relationship with God that literally changes the desires of his heart. You'll never experience that. Moses is not content with the current depth of his relationship. So what does Moses do? We see Moses is spending time with God regularly. He is consumed with God, and he refuses to put his relationship with God on cruise control. If anybody could have put their relationship with God on cruise control, it's Moses. Here's a man who did what God said. He led the people out of bondage. He led them out of slavery. He leads them into the wilderness. Moses is working hard for the people. He's going up onto the mountain, getting the 10 Commandments. He's coming back down. He's fasting. He's praying. He's doing all of these things. If anybody could say, man, I've been going hard for God, let me put this thing on cruise control, it is Moses, but we don't see him doing that. Moses says, I can't put this thing on cruise control because there's so much more that I want to experience. I know you all watch a lot of TV, just like I tend to watch a little bit of TV myself. And when you're watching a new show, they have this thing called a pilot. Anybody heard of a pilot show? Pilot show is the first show. Now, when they run a pilot, they're going to pull out all the stops because what are they trying to do? They're trying to draw you in. They're trying to get you to watch episode number 2. So they put a cliffhanger at the end of the pilot. So hopefully you'll say, well, wait a minute, I got to find out what happened to so-and-so, so I got to watch the next episode. And what do? You watch the next episode, and if it's a good show, you like the next episode, and then they put a cliffhanger at the end of that thing, and then what do? Do you just turn it off and not watch it the next week? No, you watch it the next week. And now they have pulled you in, and now you join Facebook groups, the watch groups, and you have watch parties, and you coming over to watch the season finale of this show and that show, and you're saying, don't say anything on social media, don't ruin it. I didn't get a chance to watch it yet. You're doing all of this around the show, but it started because they pulled you in, and you didn't just shut it off, but they kept drawing you in and close and over and over and over. They keep pulling you in because you have this taste, this appetite, almost this addiction to this particular show. And this is what Moses is saying. I've had a taste of the goodness of the Lord, and I'm not satisfied. I want more. I want more. If there's more available, I want more. So Moses says, I'm not just content knowing the what of God and seeing the miracles of God, but I want to know the why behind the God. I don't want just the what, but I want the why. Now, what versus why? This is really important. Now, when you drive a car, all of us drive a car. Most of us drive a car. There's some kids in here. When you have a car, you know what that car will do. You know the car will take you from A to Z. You know it has air conditioning. You know you can unlock the doors, power locks, power steering, all this kind of stuff. You know the what of the car. But very few people in this room understand the why of the car. If your car check engine light comes on, very few of you will go into your driveway, pop the hood, and be able to understand the inner workings and the inner mechanisms of that particular car. You'll have to take your car to an expert that can tell you the whys behind the car, because we are happy with just the what, but we don't really know why and can't explain what's going on under the hood. And Moses says, I don't just want the miracles of God, but I want the person of God, and I want more and more and more of him. This takes intimacy. It takes intentionality. This takes time, understanding what is it that makes God smile? What is it that makes God tick? How can I put myself in this position where I am pleasing to God? And Moses has done this, and it has literally transformed his heart. He's taken time to sit at the feet of God, to study God, to ask questions of God, to seek him, to put himself in a place where he's sacrificing time so that he can be with God. Psalm 103:7 says this. David kind of confirms it. He says, God made his ways known to Moses, but his acts to the sons of Israel. God made his ways known to Moses, but he made his acts known to the nation of Israel. Now, what he's basically saying, this passage, Psalm 103, is a passage about God's mercy. mercy. So very generally, we're just talking about God's mercy. But David saw fit to make a little distinction between the relationship that Moses had with God and the relationship all the rest of the people had with God. He said, look, the rest of the people, they had a relationship with God where they saw these miracles. They saw God part the Red Sea. They saw this pillar of fire at night. They saw him do all these incredible things. He drowned the army of Pharaoh. They did all these plagues to scare Pharaoh. We saw all of these acts, and that was, for them, it seemed like they were content with that. But he said, well, there's something different about Moses. Yes, Moses saw all that, but Moses also wanted to know the ways of God. I don't just want to see your hand, God, but I want to seek your face. So here's Moses saying, God, I have this heart that desires so deeply to be with you, to go deeper in you, to experience the next episode, and the next episode, and the next episode, that he matures past just knowing the what and seeing the what. He matures into this place of knowing the whys of God and desiring to know the why. My brothers and sisters, if you want to have an intimate relationship with God that transforms your heart, it refines your spiritual palate to where you can genuinely say, I want God more than anything else, is going to start with a desire to know more than just the what of God, but we want to know the whys of God as well. The second thing we're going to see, if we want to have a heart that desires God more than anything else, we can't just want to know the ways of God, but we're going to see from Moses that he wants to protect the reputation of God. He wants to protect the reputation of God. Verse 15, it says, then he said to him, Moses is talking to God, if your presence does not go with us, do not lead us up from here. Do you see kind of the intimacy in their relationship? Most of us wouldn't dare talk to God like this. But Moses is like, okay, God, look, check this out. If you don't go with us, I don't want you to lead us from here. Like, wait a minute, Moses, like, aren't you just supposed to just do whatever God tells you to do? I mean, I guess so, but Moses, I don't know, they just had such a relationship. He said, I'm just going to be real with you, God. If you're not going to go, then I don't want you to lead us out of here. But then he has a reason why he says in verse 16, for how then can it be known that I have found favor in your sight, I and your people? Is it not by your going with us so that we, I and your people, may be distinguished? Everybody say distinguished. From all the other people who are upon the face of the earth. As Moses has matured over a 12 short months, we see that Moses is not concerned anymore about personal success, but he is concerned about protecting the reputation of God. In verse 15, he says, if your presence does not go with us, do not lead us up from here. Now, most of us want to protect our reputation. We want people to look favorably upon us. We want people to like us. We want our teachers to think we're great students. We want our bosses to think that we're great employees. We want our reputation to be good on social media, which is why we only post good stuff, favorable stuff, stuff that will paint us in a positive light. We all want to have a good a good reputation amongst people, and that's not a bad thing to want to have a good reputation amongst people. In fact, leaders, we learned in the New Testament, are to have a good reputation amongst the believing community and even the community outside the church. So having a good reputation is not necessarily a problem, but Moses is saying, look, Moses wants God's reputation protected even above his own. Now, when you were a child, I don't know if you grew up like me at all, but there were times when we would go visit places when I was a child, and my parents would basically say, don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass me. We're going to go up in this store. Don't touch anything. We're going to these people's house. Don't ask for anything. When we're about to do this or we're about to do that, and don't do X, Y, Z. And what they're saying is our reputation as a family is important, and almost what stays in this house, what happens in this house, stays in this house, because we want to keep a good reputation in the community. And Moses says, well, even more than protecting my reputation, I want to protect the reputation of God. Now, you might think, well, that's not a big deal. We all want to protect the reputation of God. Well, that's not necessarily true. Not like Moses was. See, Moses was willing to give up the prize. Moses was willing to leave his dreams in the desert in order to protect the reputation of God. He was willing to leave his dreams in the desert in order to protect the reputation of God. See, here's what God offers Moses. How do you know this? Well, Exodus chapter 32. God says, Moses, look, I'm tired of these people. We done brought them out of Egypt. They've seen miracles. We fed them bread. We fed them quail. You know, it might not have been, mama's cooking, but we didn't give them good food. They didn't ate pretty good. And they just don't seem to be happy with anything. They're grumbling, they're complaining. They see a miracle, they get excited, and then they just fall back to just the same old lives that they've always been engaged in. He says, Moses, I got a plan. Here's what I'm going to do. We'll let these people go, and I'll start over with you with a new nation. I'll give you new people, so you don't have to worry about your coworkers. You don't have to worry about the people that don't listen to you and cause you problems. And not only am I going to give you a new people, but I'm going to guarantee your success. Sounds like a pretty good deal. If God were to give us that kind of deal, it would really be hard to say no. But watch what Moses says. Here's what Moses says in Exodus chapter 2, verse 11. He says, but then Moses said back to God, O Lord, why does your anger burn against your people whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Verse 12, he says, why should the Egyptians speak, saying, with evil intent he brought them out only to kill them in the mountains and to destroy them from the face of the earth? In other words, Moses says, God, that sounds like a really good offer, but what's really at stake is your reputation. Because if we do this, then the nation of Egypt, where we just left, they're going to mock you. They're going to troll you on social media, God. They're going to say, God, you can get them out of Egypt, but you couldn't get them through the wilderness and into the promised land. It's going to hurt your reputation if we do this. Now, most times when we get offers of advancement, we just take them. If your job says, look, I'm going to give you a promotion and you're going to make an extra $25,000 a year, who's going to say no? Most of us are just going to be like, yes, and we're going to post it everywhere. Praise God, we've done this. But oftentimes we take offers of advancement, offers of promotion, and we often don't even consider God. How is this going to impact my spiritual life? How is this going to impact the reputation of God? Because I might be over here making $40,000 a year, but I have time to serve in ministry. I have time to love on my family. I have time to love on God. I have time to focus on my relationship with God. But me at $65,000, I'm going to have to give up discipleship. I'm going to have to give up serving in ministry. I'm going to have to give up X, Y, Z. And we don't often even think about that. All we think about is, hey, I'm going to get more money. It's about me. It's about what I want, and I just want God to bless it. But Moses is saying, no, I don't want the promotion. I don't want the more. I don't want the extra in the sight of men, because I care about your reputation. It's only people who have at the top of their list of desires a deeper relationship with God, a longing for more from God, who can truly say this: God, I care about your reputation more than anything else. Jesus said it when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane right before he died. He said, God, it is not my will that I want to see done. I want to see your will done, even though it's going to cost me my life. Paul said it in Philippians. When he wrote to the church at Philippi, he said, look, I've accomplished many things in life, but I consider all of my degrees, all my accolades, all the things that are hanging on my wall, I consider those things to be trash in order that I might gain Christ, that I might know Christ in the power of his resurrection, and also to share in the fellowship of his sufferings. Paul said, I will give everything up in order to protect the reputation of God and to know God more deeply. The NFL is often like this. Y'all know the NFL, the National Football League. They have a term that they say, like, we're going to protect the shield. We're going to protect the shield. So what the owners of the NFL will do is, if there's anything that might tarnish or harm the reputation of the league, whether they have to sacrifice a player, whether they have to sacrifice a coach, a team, they will throw you under the bus in a hot minute in order to protect the reputation of the seal. And this is what Moses is doing. He's saying, look, I want to protect the shield even if it causes me to make some sacrifices. The question on the table today is, how many of us are so bent on keeping God's reputation whole that we will forsake even our own dreams to protect it? Other thing Moses is going to teach us is that there is no success apart from God. There is no success apart from God. Verse 16, he says, for how then can it be known that I have found favor in your sight? Is it not by going up that people will know that we are distinguished from other people? Now Moses is recognizing that part of their mission is to be distinguished from the other people of the earth, so people know that there is a real God that has favor on these particular people, and that people will then be pointed to that God. So what Moses has done, though, is he is now defining success differently than what other people are defining success as. He defines success as being a blessing to other nations and showing them the one true God. Did y'all catch that? Moses is now defining success as being a blessing to other people, and also to being able to show other people that there is a God in heaven who loves them. That's not what the society that we live in, that's not what they say success is. Napoleon Hill wrote this book, Think and Grow Rich, I believe, or The Millionaire Next Door or something. He says, patience, persistence, and perspiration make an unbeatable combination for success. Don't believe that. Self-belief and hard work will always earn you success, said one world-class athlete. The size of your success is measured by the strength of your desire, the size of your dream, and how you handle disappointment along the way, says Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Don't allow society to define success for us as believers. Here's what the dictionary says. Here's what the dictionary actually defines success this way. Success is when you have achieved money, fame, or respect. That is what success is. And if we're not careful, that is how we will define success for our lives as well. When the Bible has given us a different measure of success altogether, and Moses has tapped into this. Now, Moses was a highly educated man, highly successful up to this point, and Moses was at the place where he had such an intimate relationship with God. He says, even with all that I've achieved, all that I know, I cannot do this thing on my own. I can't go forward. I cannot be successful without God. Now, Moses knew that they were supposed to be set apart and they were to be a model of the goodness and the faithfulness of God, to show everybody else God's blessings, his favor, his love. And that was his new definition of success. If I can do this, then I have been a success. Moses understood that he was supposed to be, their nation was supposed to be, and we ourselves, we are supposed to be runway models. So now, you know what a runway model is. Like Heidi Klum and Naomi Campbell, they put on, see, when you watch a runway, I've never seen the show Project Runway, but I know a little bit about runways. Runways are not about the models, believe it or not. Runways are about the designers, right? It's about design. Because what the model is doing is simply showing off what the designer has to offer. And so Moses has now defined success as being a runway model. He understands that he and the nation are to be runway models for God. So they're supposed to be doing all this. Right? They're supposed to be runway models, not to show themselves off, but to show off the designer who is God. So Moses is saying, look, success is not bringing attention to me. Success is now my ability to point people to God. And this only happens because Moses has been transformed to where it's not about his own success anymore. It's now about the success of God, and there is no success apart from God. Jesus says it this way in John 15, verse 5. He says, apart from me, you can do nothing. Apart from me, you can do nothing. And this here, one of the greatest tensions that we will face as believers, kind of emerges from the text today. Back in Genesis chapter 3, there was this situation between this woman named Eve, her husband named Adam, and the serpent who was the devil. We talk about this a lot at Bible study. In Genesis chapter 3, this tension emerges where basically the devil is offering Eve the opportunity to be independent of God. And he says, look, if you would eat this fruit, your eyes will be open and you will be like God. You will be able to determine good and evil for yourself. You won't need God. And the devil is doing the same thing today. He is trying to seduce each one of us and trying to convince us that we can be okay apart from God. And many of us have bought the myth. You know what? I got up today. I didn't pray. I was able to brush my teeth, wash my face, drive to church. I didn't pray. I wasn't even thinking about God. I'm able to come to church. I can go to work. I don't even pray before I go to work. Actually, I haven't read my Bible all month. But I still get a paycheck. So obviously, I am able to be successful apart from God. But my brothers and my sisters, the great destiny that God has in store for you that is measured by spiritual growth and your ability to reach other people is not something that you can do just getting up on your own and going out and not spending time with the Lord, not reading your word, not praying, not being a part of the family of faith. And when you can wrap your mind around this reality, you will have the desire to go deeper because you just can't make stuff happen. You can't, no matter how educated, how good looking, how successful you are, no matter how good your resume is, you cannot just make stuff happen. Now, Moses very well could have just kept walking. Moses didn't really need God to just keep walking to the promised land. He could have said, God, I know the way. we'll just keep walking. But what Moses understood was that it was more than just getting to this destination of success. It was making sure that they were going to have the impact that God had called them to make in that particular season of life. Most of us will just go. Be like, man, the promised land's over there, and they got better food over here. They got more money. They got a better career. Okay, I'm just going to go, and God, will you bless it? Pastor, can you just pray over me and then just release me? Because I'm going to go. I'm gonna do it. And I just hope that God blesses it. And so now God just becomes like the caramel on top to our plans. We make our plans. We want to do what we want to do. God, we'll just put a little prayer on top, like some caramel, and that'll just kind of give us a little extra to get to the place where we want to go. And when we do that, we kind of get out ahead of God. We get out ahead of God. And it's not whether I'm going to stay with you, God, but it becomes, I'm just going to chase after whatever it is that I wanted. In Acts chapter 8, there was a man by the name of Simon Magus. He saw the power of God, and he said, you know what? I want that power, not because I want to know God more deeply. I want that power because that power can make me some money. And so he's saying to the apostles, hey, can y'all give me this power? Because if I get this power, it's going to make me some money. And sometimes this is how we approach God. God, if you'll just bless me, if you'll show me a miracle, it's going to help me. I don't really care about you, God, but what I really want to do is get this because it's going to enrich me in some way. It's like back when you were in school. Remember when you were in school and maybe in the one class you were doing really well in? The one class you were doing well in. And you kind of already knew the content of the class. And so the teacher said, hey, we're going to work together through these particular problems. And because you already knew the answers, you just kept working ahead. And so you just worked ahead, and you were done. And so now you're a distraction to the teacher because you're trying to talk to other people because you've worked ahead of where she really wanted you to be. And then when the test comes, you wonder why you got a C instead of an A because you missed some stuff because you got ahead of the teacher. And see, what God is trying to help us understand is though you can work to the end of it, there's some stuff that you're going to miss if you try to go without God. There's some stuff that when the test comes, you're going to fail on the test because you didn't take your time and allow me to walk with you through this process. Here's where Moses is. He's saying, God, if you don't go with me, I'm not going. God, I don't care what lies ahead. I don't care what blessings are ahead of me. If you are not there, I'm not going because there is no success apart from God. And lastly, we see this. We see Moses not just wanting to know the ways of God and protect the reputation of God, but we see that God wants to see the glory of God. That Moses wants to see the glory of God. Verse 17, then the Lord said to Moses, he says, I will show you this thing which you have spoken for you have found favor in my sight, and I have known your name. Watch this in verse 18. Then Moses said, his next prayer request, watch this, was show me your glory. Did y'all see that? His only two prayer requests, he has the ear of God. Now, if you had the ear of God and God says, I have found favor in your sight, what would you ask God for? What would you ask God for? And I've been asking myself this very question this week as I've been studying. What do I really want? And I've been challenged, y'all, because at the top of my Christmas list is not what is at the top of Moses' Christmas list. Can I be honest? Can I just be real? At the top of my prayer request is not, I just want to know God better. I want to experience his glory in a more meaningful and powerful way. That was not at the list. Now I'm being challenged to say, well, wait, maybe my priorities are out of whack. Maybe I'm off a little bit in some areas where I want other things ahead of me wanting more than God. Maybe there's some transformation that needs to happen in my heart. There's the question, what do you want? If you had the ear of God, what would you ask God for? And Moses says, look, I want to know your ways, and I want to see your glory. Now, we talk about the glory of God all the time. So why is God's glory so important? We've heard, if you've been around church for a while, that we are to bring glory to God. Now, that makes God sound very self-serving. Doesn't it? Did anybody ever question that? Anybody like, man, God is a jealous God. We dealt with that last week. Like, that doesn't sound right that God would be jealous. And then we say, well, God wants glory. Well, that seems kind of arrogant. Like, God wants glory. Nobody's ever asked that question? Nobody's ever thought about that? I think about things like this. Like, God must be arrogant to want all this glory for himself. But God is not being arrogant at all. If God is glorified, it helps a whole bunch of people. If God is glorified, it's going to help a whole lot of people. And Moses says, because I want to see a lot of people getting helped, my life will now be about bringing attention to God. In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31, it says, Paul says, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Because when God is glorified, a whole lot of people are going to get help. All you have to do is cut on the news to see that we live in a city where there's a whole lot of people that need the help that only God can give. There's a police officer last night who was shot to death, 32 years old, gunned down in the streets. There are people right here in our community, in our city, that need the help of God. And the only way this is going to happen is if the people of God are giving glory to God, pointing people to that God. Now, if there was a natural disaster, if natural disaster happens, on the news, you turn on the news, everybody's going to tell you how to get help. Call this number to get help. Call this number for FEMA. Call this number to get the city of Houston. On social media, it's going to be everywhere. Call this to get this. Call this to get that. Everybody's going to put it out there, and nobody would say, well, FEMA's being self-serving. FEMA's being arrogant. No, what FEMA is trying to do is show you the way that you can get some help. They're trying to draw all this attention to themselves because FEMA knows if you come to me, I can help you in your situation. This is what bringing glory to God is. God is saying, look, I want you to bring people to me because if you bring them to me, I can give them the help that you can't give them. Don't bring glory to you, bring glory to me. The problem with drawing attention to ourselves is that we draw attention away from God, and we can't help people like God can. We just can't do it. Now look, you can offer a meal to somebody. You can offer a meal, but God is the one that can offer food for the soul. You can't offer that. God, you can offer somebody a meal, and it can be a good meal. You can make them a plate at Christmas time and have all of the trappings on it. They will be full for a little while longer, but they'll be hungry again. But God says man doesn't live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of my mouth. And what God is saying is, look, I can fill them in a way that you cannot do it. Point people to me and not yourself. See, you can offer somebody friendship, but God can offer people Jesus, who is a friend that will stick closer than a brother. When that friend abandons you or when you abandon that person, you get busy. When they understand who Jesus is, they have a friend who they can call at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, a friend that is always available, that never sleeps, and will be a friend that sticks closer than a brother. You can offer them some money, but you can't offer them what God can offer. See, God said, I own the cattle on 1,000 hills. I own everything. I can give provision in ways that you can't. Point people to me so that I'm glorified, so that I can help them. You can offer people temporary dwelling. You can put them up in a hotel. You can bring them into your house and put them in a spare room, but you cannot offer an eternal dwelling place, which is ultimately what everybody needs. God says, give me the glory, and I will help people in ways that you can't. And Moses understands this. He says, God, I want not only to bring you glory, but I want to see your glory. I want to see your glory. And what Moses is saying is, if I can see your glory, it will help me by giving me the assurance that you are with me. You want to abandon us because we've been clowning and acting a fool, but God, look, I want to make sure that you don't abandon us. I want the assurance of your presence. So in verse 19, God says, look, I can't show you my face, because no man can see my face and live, but I'll cover your face, and I'll just let my back pass by you. And when my back passes by you, you'll see enough of my glory to satisfy whatever taste that you have for more of me. I'll just let you see the exhaust from my spirit. Tony Evans said it like this. He said, when you see an airplane, sometimes you hear an airplane, but you can't see the airplane, but what you can see is the exhaust of the airplane, and then you know that there's been an airplane in your midst. This is what God is saying to Moses. He's saying, look, I can't let you see all of me, but I'm just going to give you a little bit of the exhaust, and the exhaust is going to satisfy you and feed you. Now, you might say this is a strange request of God, because Moses already meets with God. He's already seen the pillar of cloud by day, the pillar of fire at night. He's already seen God in some of these ways. But as we said earlier, Moses he's tasted and he's seen that God is good. And he's saying, though I've already had these experiences with you, I just have a desire for more. I have a desire for more. Have you ever had a dish that you've never tried before, but you already said you don't like it? You've never tried it, but you don't like it. I'm notorious for that. I'll see something, and because I know an ingredient in it, like it may have cream of mushroom soup, which I don't like mushrooms. So if I know it has cream of mushrooms in it, it could be the bomb. But I'm not going to try it because I already kind of know what's in it. I'm cool. But sometimes my wife will trick me. She won't lie to me. She'll just kind of trick me. She'll cook something that she knows I wouldn't ordinarily eat, and then she'll kind of wait until after I eat it. Be like, that's good, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, baby, this is good. What is this? Oh, it's something with cream of mushroom soup. Ugh. What else you got? What else we got in the refrigerator? Can we order pizza? But what happens sometimes is we try it and we say, man, that was good. And now, my sister tells me this sometimes. This is probably a better way to illustrate it. My sister tells me sometimes, I'm astonished at the things you eat as an adult that you didn't eat as a kid. We'll be out somewhere and I'll order something. She's like, you like that? You eat that? I'm like, yeah, I tried it, back when I was like in college or something. I just fell in love with it and I eat it now. It's like, wow, you didn't eat that as a kid. We couldn't pay you to eat that. And now you eat it now. And so what Moses is saying, look, I've tasted a little bit of God. I've seen his presence, I've seen his glory in some ways, but I'm not going to be satisfied until I see it a little bit more. Now, the glory of God is the weight of his presence. And Moses is saying, look, if I know that your presence is going to be with us, I know you're going to help us, then I will be assured that we can do this. Moses is essentially telling us today that you should never be bored when it comes to God. You and I should never be bored when it comes to God. Now, a lot of times we think following Jesus, that's the most boring thing we can do. And Moses is saying, like, when your heart is in the right place and you desire God above anything else, like, you will never be bored when it comes to the things of God. He was satisfied. He wants to be satisfied by this desire where if he could just see a little bit of God's goodness, it will satisfy him in ways that nothing else will satisfy him, and it leads him, blows us to this deeper place of worship. In Romans chapter 11, verse 33, the Apostle Paul, I'm done. The Apostle Paul was writing to the Romans, a letter to the Romans. And as he's writing all this stuff about God, in Romans 11, verse 33, he just says, oh, it's almost like he just starts shouting. He says, oh, the depth of the riches, both of the wisdom and the knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments and how unfathomable are his ways. Paul, after writing about God and thinking about God, he just has this moment of praise where he's saying, oh my God, God is inexhaustible. There is just no end to the goodness of God. I believe, my brothers and sisters, when we get to this place, not only will we not find ourselves bored with God, but we too will say, God, I want you more than I want anything else. So the question this holiday season is not what's on your Christmas list, but really what's at the top of your prayer list. What is at the top of your prayer list? If you had the ear of God, and God says, my brother, my sister, my son, my daughter, what is the one thing or the two things that you want? My prayer for us is that it won't be a nicer car or a better job or new coworkers or a new family even, but that the thing that would emerge at the top of our wish list, our desire list, is that we would want a more intimate walk, a more intimate relationship with God.